World of Warcraft has seen some very dark times. Content droughts, design fiascos, scandals, systems too complex for their own good, and radio silence as community engagement hits an all-time low. And now Final Fantasy XIV and other competitors are closing in. But I don't think this has to be the end of the story for World of Warcraft. What World of Warcraft needs is simpler systems, more content, better community engagement so that the dev teams know what will get players excited to pick up World of Warcraft again. To that end, I have invented a system of my own, a simple system that gives players huge amounts of customization, that lets developers add awesome and useful abilities without fear of spellbar bloat, giving players the ability to upgrade 3 of their spells to be something new. I'm cooking up concepts for 7 of these upgrade spells for every spec. Some of them are returning favorites, some of them are brand new. Either way, Blizzard has my express permission to use every concept I post about in these videos in the comments or on the forums. And if the Blizzard developers are too pressed for time to engage with the community, then I will. I'll get the feedback on this concept, and even if they don't take a single one of my ideas, they'll know what the players want, and most importantly, why. And they can use that to make the game better, because I want this game better. I want WoW to last another decade. Fire was a pretty fun spec to cook up upgrades for. Fire has a lot of fun procs and passives and tricks, and even better, the talent grids don't really replace many of your spells, leaving me wide open to cook up whatever upgrades I think will look cool, shake things up, or make things more fun. Of course, what I think qualifies as cool or as fun might not be what an experienced Fire Mage player would, and I know it. So I'm more than open to feedback and plan to fall in line with it to make a better spread of upgrades in Iteration 2. That being said, there are a few that I believe all players will be excited about, so let's start with the exciting one. Prism Fire Salvo, an upgrade for Fire Blast. It uses all 3 Mage damage types, slowing the target and increasing the damage taken from your next spell by 5%. The second one is Fireball Volley, an upgrade for Dragon's Breath. It has a 15-second cooldown, and the Alexstrasza's Fury talent guarantees it will provide 2 stacks of Hot Streak. The third upgrade is Flame Orb, which sends a projectile forward that burns nearby enemies for fire damage. It's also an upgrade for Dragon's Breath. If you have abilities that buff your damage, then the orb carries those buffs with it as it travels, even if those buffs end while the orb is still in flight. This has a 45-second cooldown. The fourth upgrade is Inferno Blast. That's an upgrade for Fire Blast that prolongs Ignite's duration when you use it. The fifth upgrade is Scald. It's an upgrade for Scorch that provides a short damage over time that deals Frostfire damage and stacks, and you can cast this while moving. It also slows the target while the damage over time lasts. The sixth upgrade is Prism Fire Nova, an upgrade for Frost Nova that deals all 3 types of damage. It can trigger Hot Streak, and it deals much more damage than Frost Nova would deal. The final upgrade is Nullify, which is an upgrade for Counterspell that silences the target when you successfully interrupt them. And now for the thinking. Fireball Volley seemed like a really cool ability, and since Dragon's Breath was already a cone spell, I figured it fit. Of course, Dragon's Breath already has its place in Fire's rotation, at least during combustion. I remember that when I was doing my homework for this assignment on Icy Veins, it said to cast Dragon's Breath right at the end of combustion because it was instant cast, and combustion, lasting 10 seconds, would require you to cast an instant at the end to squeeze in 1 extra spell. Fireball Volley isn't actually instant cast, but considering that it would likely generate Hot Streak against multiple targets, I figure it would be useful as part of a multi-target rotation if there were enough targets. So Fireball Volley would basically be good for sustain, and Flame Orb would be good for burst damage. We have seen some powerful Mage NPCs combining Fire, Frost, and Arcane damage into a single spell, and doing some amazing things with it. Khadgar busting a dam in Warlords of Draenor comes to mind. Prism Fire Salvo is meant to evoke that. I added the slow and the plus damage effects because I wanted there to be some frost and arcane flavor mixed in, and increasing the damage of your next spell was all I could think of for arcane flavor. As for Flame Orb, when I saw how Dragon's Breath was used in the rotations on Icy Veins as an instant cast damage ability to take advantage of the last tiny bit of combustion duration, I knew I had to do something with Dragon's Breath that was instant cast. Now, Flame Orb is a removed mage spell. It was pretty much only a thing during Cataclysm, but if it carries whatever buffs there are to your fire damage that are active at the instant you cast it, it would be pretty terrific. You can use this the same way you use Dragon's Breath, right at the end of combustion. I guess the trade-off is between multi-target burst and multi-target sustain. Fun fact. At first, I had wanted Fireball Volley to be the burst option and Flame Orb to be the sustain option, but after realizing that Flame Orb was built to work with combustion, I realized it should be the other way around, no matter what Frostbolt Volley was like for Frost. Now, Scald is to Scorch what Frost Firebolt was to Frostbolt. It can slow the target a bit and does do a bit more damage. It would probably only be useful in a few fights with a lot of movement, though. But then again, so would Scorch. Prism Fire Nova, well, I was starting to run out of ideas, and then I saw Frost Nova right there, waiting to be upgraded. Of course, I don't know how useful it would be to have it have a chance to proc Hot Streak, though. You'd only use it in oh-snap situations unless I modified it to deal much more damage to the point where it's worth it to make it part of your rotation. Heck, if the numbers were right for it, then Prism Fire Nova might just be the thing that you use to squeeze in one last instance spell at the end of combustion. Not that I intended that, but it occurred to me, so I figured I should at least mention it. And Nullify was, again, me running low on ideas and upgrading a utility ability. I like to do that, to go off the beaten path with at least one of the upgrades I have in the spread. If players don't like that or have a better idea, then I'm prepared to kick it out and make room for something better. Inferno Blast was a mage spell that got removed. Once upon a time it would spread Ignite around, but Phoenix Flames does that these days, so instead I decided to make it prolong Ignite's duration a bit. If there are better ways to handle this upgrade, please let me know. I worry a little bit that it would make Inferno Blast a must-have on any fight that isn't short, but, well, what do I know? Maybe that would be unknowable until and unless numbers get attached to all of these abilities, and numbers are the finishing touch, not where we start from. So maybe I'm worrying about something dumb by worrying about Inferno Blast being a must-have. Now, when I started out with these upgrade concepts, I went ability by ability, not purpose by purpose, if you see what I mean. I asked myself, which abilities exist in this specs kit that I can give an upgrade to? And when I created upgrades based on which abilities I could upgrade, I often aimed for something that I thought looked or sounded cool. Almost always I wanted the upgraded ability to feel at least a little bit different from the original. Often I tried to create some kind of trade-off, making the upgrade situationally useful based on things like the number of targets affected or having a stronger effect with a longer cooldown, things like that. Rarely did I upgrade the same ability more than once for the same spec, but while I was putting together each spread of upgrades, what I didn't do, and what I probably should have done in retrospect, was to figure out what goals a player would have while they're looking at a list of upgrades, and then make sure upgrades exist in the spread that allow the player to pick upgrades that help them achieve those goals. In my next iteration, I plan to have that design goal in mind, to consider what the player wants to accomplish and how they could accomplish it with the upgrades. I strongly suspect that in this next iteration, there will be a lot more cases where I upgrade the same ability in 2 or more different ways. That will give players more options, and since that's going to be the goal with goal-oriented design, who knows? I might even have 3 different upgrades for the same ability in the end. However, I can do this much more effectively in an environment that has a great deal of feedback available, and that's where you come in. You have knowledge that comes from experience with these specs. I don't. I tried to do my research on Wowhead and Icy Veins for each spec, but inevitably there'll be things you know that I don't because you have experience that I don't have. You'll have more and better ideas than I could hope to have, and I know I need those, so please, Let me know what you think of these upgrades and what better ideas you have for what to put in their places. Now, looking at the spread of fire upgrades from the perspective of figuring out how to upgrade abilities for specific purposes, there's less multi-target here than I'd thought. That's partly because I'm upgrading the same multi-target ability twice. If I should boot out some of these upgrades and add one for Flamestrike, or if I should create a version of Fireball that hits multiple targets, then I will. It wouldn't be the first time I've done something like that, just ask Warlocks. I could totally call an upgrade for Fireball Cinderstorm, but, make it useful this time. Single target seems to be doing pretty well. Scald, Infernal Blast, and especially Prism Fire Salvo seem to be obvious and useful choices. But just because they look obvious and useful to me, someone who's played a Holy Paladin since 2005 and doesn't really play other classes, doesn't mean they'll look useful to experienced Fire Mage players. If feedback tells me to change things around, I will. Personally, I feel like I could use another multi-target upgrade in here somewhere. Should I take out Prism Fire Nova and slide in Cinderstorm, upgrading Fireball to target multiple enemies? And no, Cinderstorm's original set arc for the Cinders isn't what I have in mind. Simply, multiple projectiles hitting targets around your main target is what I'm thinking. Another thing I wanted to talk about is one of the things that personally appealed to me was adding volley spells. Spells that throw a lot of projectiles at enemies. Fireball Volley and Frostbolt Volley are the ones that I added for mages. Arcane Barrage more or less counted as one of these volley spells from the beginning. Shaman got Lightning Bolt Volley in their spread of upgrades, Paladins got Holy Wrath, Warlocks got Shadow Bolt Volley, Druids, they've got the option of picking up a multi-target Freya's Wrath upgrade. I mean, maybe I'm thinking with a vanilla mind a little too much, but I remember seeing these volley spells when NPCs were casting them and thinking they were cool. And plenty of times in World of Warcraft's history, the devs took something cool that NPCs could do, e.g. the Flame Orb ability that I have here, and then enabled players to do it too. The devs haven't added any of the volley spells yet, so I figured now's a good time to sneak them in. Though NPCs haven't really had those kinds of volley spells since the Burning Crusade. Ah well, they still look awesome. But of course, just because I think something looks awesome for a given spec doesn't necessarily mean players of that spec will agree with me. I am prepared to make changes, even if they have me move away from Bolt Volley upgrades, though it'll make me sad. If I am told to do so by they that know better than I will remove them. Of course, I know Blizzard probably won't take many, or even any of these suggestions. Heck, they might even have something objectively better in store for us than the semi-borrowed power upgrade system that I've cooked up here. But knowing what gets players excited will be helpful to them even so. That is why I'm sacrificing so much of my free time and energy on Project Decade. And who knows, they might just need these ideas to get WoW going in the right direction. Heck, if this video series just gets the Blizzard developers into the habit of creating a blue post with the thinking in it that goes in-depth enough for us to understand what they're doing and what their design goals are, then that would be a huge step forward. Even saying the thinking out loud is sometimes enough to get you a new perspective on what you're doing. Is it really what people want? Does it serve the purposes that it really should be serving in the end? Am I really doing something just to make a system look awesome instead of making the game overall better? What does it do for the fun factor? Am I making the mistake of prioritizing my design goals over the fun factor? Are my design goals the right design goals to have? Do my ideas match the spec's feel and flavor? Is it a net gain? Is it genuinely awesome? Things like that. Plus, we just plain need more communication from Blizzard. If Project Decade gets the development team into the habit of telling us the thinking for every change they make, then the whole project will have been worth it, even if they don't take a single suggestion. Again, if you see something you don't like bad trade-offs or something you know is counterproductive or useless, or if you've thought of an idea that's better or cooler or more useful than mine, then don't hesitate to let me know. The more details you can provide about why you don't like it and what makes one of my ideas counterproductive or useless, or about why your idea is cooler or more useful than mine, the better. One of the main goals of Project Decade is to give whoever's in charge of class design and player power systems a good idea what appeals to players and what will actually get them excited to get back to WoW again. And the more you can say about the wherefore and the why, the better. I fully intend to iterate on this project and make changes in response to feedback. I know I'm going to make mistakes. Heck, I've already seen mistakes in some of the things that I've done. But if those mistakes generate the kind of discussion that Blizzard needs to hear, so much the better. Blizzard needs to see player engagement, humility, and feedback actually making change in action so they can start doing what needs to be done to turn WoW around. It can be done and it should be done. World of Warcraft can last another decade. So keep the feedback coming, folks. There's one last thing. I began working on Project Decade videos back in July, and considering how many months it has taken, the fact that there are 36 different sets of feedback to curate and compile, and multitudes of decisions to make based on feedback received, ideas others have come up with, and how to weave everything together into a fun, functional, and exciting whole, I don't have a chance in the tramaculum of getting this done in any reasonable length of time unless I get volunteers to help me curate and compile the feedback I'm getting. If you're willing to help curate feedback, please let me know. If I get enough interest, I will set up a Discord server where we can coordinate everything. Thank you in advance for your feedback and support. Let's make World of Warcraft the best game that it can be.